Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unraveling a deeply fascinating, and honestly for a lot of folks, a deeply frustrating human experience. We're looking at the paradox of why doing everything quote-unquote right in dating sometimes leads you straight into the friend zone. You know the exact scenario, right? Someone is thoughtful, they're reliable, they're always there when things fall apart, and yet they somehow never end up being the one chosen romantically. We're going to break down the hidden psychology of safety versus desire. And trust me, the mechanics behind this, they're going to completely change how you view your past and for sure, your future relationships.
So to really understand this paradox, we have to start by asking a super fundamental question. What makes someone truly attractive? If you poll people, or if you just look at standard relationship advice out there, you'll usually get a very specific, reliable set of answers. It sounds like a total formula for success, doesn't it? Be a good listener, be present, be a solid friend first. It sets up what seems like the ultimate foolproof dating playbook.
Okay, let's dive into this classic playbook. According to the foundational psychology of attraction, there are a few core steps to winning someone over. Number one, you initiate contact. You're the one making the calls, sending the texts, showing that clear interest. Number two, you remember the little details. You notice what they wore, you remember their favorite coffee order, their important dates. And number three, you make them laugh. Because, well, shared humor builds incredibly strong bonds. It's thoughtful, it's attentive, and hey, it is textbook good advice.
But let's slow down for just a second. What actually happens when you follow those steps perfectly? You initiate, you listen, you remember all the little things, and then you hear this devastating, all too familiar line. You're going to make someone so happy one day, I just don't want to ruin our friendship. Ouch. You're basically told you're amazing, thoughtful, and totally different from everyone else by the exact person who is actively choosing not to be with you. It's incredibly painful. And frankly, it's just completely baffling.
Listen, if this has happened to you, I want to validate something right here, right now. You are not crazy, you are not unattractive, and you aren't lacking some magical quality that everyone else has. You are simply caught in the massive divide between being the safe choice and being the chosen one. The confusion happens because by almost every measure, you actually are doing everything right. You're showing up. But then you have to sit there and watch the person you care about choose someone who's inconsistent, who gives way less, and who creates way more confusion than clarity. It literally makes zero logical sense until you look at the underlying psychology.
To figure out why this happens, we have to look at psychologist Robert Sternberg's famous research on love. He identifies three absolutely necessary components: intimacy, passion, and commitment. Now, what's really fascinating about this theory is how we typically completely misunderstand that first word, intimacy. We tend to think intimacy means romance or physical connection, but psychologically speaking, intimacy simply means closeness. It's that warm feeling of being understood, supported, and emotionally connected.
And this brings us to the real divide. There is a massive contrast between intimacy and passion. Friendship is built almost entirely on intimacy. It's stable, it's warm, it's incredibly safe. But romantic attraction, passion, requires something entirely different. It requires activation. It needs an element of tension, a little bit of uncertainty, and a pull that doesn't feel entirely settled or guaranteed. When a connection is built 100% on safety and the other person never feels even a little bit off balance, well, romantic desire literally doesn't know where to enter the room.
So it really all boils down to one absolutely crucial concept. Desire needs gaps. This is all about pacing. Think about it for a second. When emotional closeness, total availability, and deep investment happen all at once, right out of the gate, there's no room left for longing to actually develop. There's no empty space for the other person's mind to wonder about what you're up to, or to actively seek you out. And look, it's not about playing games, it's just human nature. Desire needs a little bit of breathing room to grow into. So why do so many of us remove that space and completely eliminate the tension? Fundamentally, it comes down to fear. For a lot of people, tension just feels really unsafe. So they smooth it all out, they avoid any kind of healthy friction, they won't tease the other person because they're terrified it might land wrong, they won't playfully challenge them because they fear it'll push them away, and they absolutely will not risk the awkward confession of their true feelings because the thought of rejection is just unbearable. They keep everything totally flat and comfortable. But unfortunately, friction is exactly where that romantic spark lives.
This brings us to a deeper and honestly a much more empathetic realization. For some people, safety is literally the only language of connection they know. They bond by caretaking, by being the one who helps, who stabilizes the situation, who is completely and totally accommodating. And I want to be super clear here. This is not some manipulative, deliberate strategy. It's just how they learn to connect. Maybe it's how they learned early on that they matter to people. They use caretaking as a shield to secure their place in someone's life.
Which leads us to this incredibly heavy realization from our source material. Being needed started to feel safer than being wanted. Just sit with that for a moment. Staying in a one-sided friendship, playing the role of the ultimate confidant, means you never actually have to fully expose what you truly want. Flirting is exposure. Expressing clear desire is a massive, scary risk. And somewhere along the line, quietly hoping for more while making yourself totally indispensable, well, it started to feel safer than standing in the raw vulnerability of your own desire.
This creates a powerful, really conflicting dynamic. It's the learned defense mechanism of earning closeness versus the terrifying reality of risking closeness. See, when you believe your value comes purely from what you give, rather than who you inherently are, you build connections that never actually ask for anything. You just give and give and give. But true romantic connection? That requires risking closeness. It requires being honest, verbally expressing that you want them romantically, and facing the absolutely terrifying vulnerability that they might say no.
Because of this deeply ingrained defense mechanism, people get trapped in what we call the reinforcing arc. It's a painful looping cycle. First, the closeness builds as you play the perfect caretaker. Your secret hope quickly grows. But then comes that gentle, crushing conversation, putting you back in your place. I just don't see you that way. And you're left quietly grieving a relationship that never officially existed in the first place. There's no real breakup, there's no closure. And honestly, the cruelest part is that you brace for this exact rejection in your next connection, which makes you even more cautious, virtually guaranteeing you end up right back in the friend zone.
Now hold on. I definitely don't want you to walk away from this explainer thinking that being a safe, reliable person is a bad thing. It's really not. Safety is rare, and it is deeply, profoundly meaningful. Being the person others feel comfortable around is a beautiful trait. But we have to recognize that over-relying on it might be protecting an older inner fear. A fear that asking for things makes you a burden, or that wanting someone openly is just way too dangerous.
Ultimately, bridging that gap between friendship and romance means combining these two forces. Trust is earned through consistency, through being that rock-solid, safe, reliable person. But desire? Desire is sparked through honesty. To break out of the friend zone, you can't just be the anchor. You have to introduce the spark. You have to pair your reliable trust with a risky, unapologetic honesty of clear desire.
So I want to leave you with this final, lingering thought. What if your pattern of ending up in the friend zone isn't about you not being good enough or attractive enough or funny enough? What if it's entirely about hiding the part of you that wants? Sometimes the people most capable of love are the ones who have been hiding it the longest, waiting perfectly to be chosen when they could have been choosing all along. Stop hiding your desire behind safety. Take the risk. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.